This is one of Anbernic's latest handheld consoles that came out a few months ago. It's called the RG Vita. Today we're going to find out whether it truly deserves to carry the proud and legendary Vita name, or if this is just another piece of marketing hype that isn't actually capable of running games from the PlayStation Vita. But first, let's unbox the console, take a look at the design and specifications, and compare its price and performance to its main competitors, namely the Anbernic RX, the iNeo Pocket Air Mini, and the Tremio Smart Pro S. I've already reviewed all of these handhelds on my channel. You'll find links to those videos in the description below. By the way, the Anbernic RG Vita comes in two different versions, the standard model, like the one I have here, and a Pro version with a more powerful processor. I chose the standard version because to me it seems like the more interesting and better value option when it comes to price-to-performance ratio. The console arrived in this packaging right here. Inside the box, you get the handheld itself, a user manual, and in a separate little box, there is a USB Type-A to USB Type-C charging cable. This is a pretty standard package for Anbernic handhelds, no carrying case or screen protectors included. Visually, this handheld looks really impressive. The entire front panel is covered with glass, just like the original PlayStation Vita. Even the matte cutouts around the controls are clearly inspired by the Vita's design. The back panel is made of high-quality matte plastic, and there are even two small ergonomics grips here to make the handheld more comfortable to hold during longer gaming sessions. After turning on the console and connecting to Wi-Fi, you'll get a software update notification. The process takes a little while, so be patient. But one thing I really like about Anbernic handhelds is that they're basically ready to use right out of the box. The system automatically downloads and installs all the necessary apps and emulators after the first startup. All I really have to do is insert my SD card with my game collection. As you can see, all the major apps are already installed. Honestly, probably even more than you actually need. When you press this button with the Anbernic logo, it launches the company's custom launcher, which automatically scans your game collection and organizes everything by system. By the way, the console runs on Android 12 and also includes built-in vibration feedback, which definitely improves the overall gaming experience. The handheld features a solid touchscreen IPS display measuring nearly 5.5 inches diagonally, with a resolution of 1280 by 720 pixels. The screen bezels are hidden really well, which gives the device a more premium feel. When it comes to the buttons, D-pad, shoulder buttons and triggers, everything is excellent, just like on most Anbernic handhelds. To me, Anbernic has become somewhat of a quality benchmark. Most of their devices have great build quality and excellent controls. The D-pad feels really good, firm enough without being too stiff, and diagonal inputs register perfectly here, with no missed presses. The face buttons have a glossy finish and also feel satisfying to press. The shoulder buttons and triggers have a fairly loud click when pressed, and honestly, that's the only downside I noticed here. People around you might find it a little annoying. The analog sticks are excellent quality and come with removable caps, which is convenient if you ever want to swap them for custom ones. There is also RGB lighting around the analog sticks, just like on many modern handheld consoles. And before we continue, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Also, don't forget to click the bell icon so you won't miss any new videos. And if you want to support the channel even more, you can hit the hype button. It helps push the video to new audiences and brings even more people into our community. The Anbernic RG Vita is powered by the Tiger T618 processor. This is a fairly capable chipset for a mid-range handheld. The exact same processor was used in the Powkiddy X28, which I reviewed almost 2 years ago. Essentially, the Anbernic RG Vita is a very similar device, just more compact with a better screen and noticeably better overall build quality. Right now, in my opinion, it has three main competitors: the MagMe Air X, the iNeo Pocket Air Mini, and the TrimUI Smart Pro S. I also ran a quick performance comparison using Geekbench 6, both in single-core and multi-core scores. From that comparison, you can clearly see that this chip performance better than the MagMe device, but still falls behind the iNeo. The TrimUI Smart Pro S is basically a lower-tier device compared to these Android handhelds, although I still really like it, probably because I am a fan of TrimUI devices in general. Although these handhelds are priced roughly in the same range, around $100, except for the iNeo, which starts at about $130, and even then it's often out of stock. So under these conditions, the Anbernic RG Vita actually feels like one of the most balanced options. It's slightly weaker than the Pocket Air Mini in performance, but also about $30 cheaper. Let me know in the comments which one you would choose out of these four, or maybe you have another alternative in mind. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. Now I tested a number of games, starting with the lighter ones. Straight out of the box, there is no setup required, everything just works. All games launch with pre-configured themed overalls for each retro system like NES, PlayStation, Game Boy Advance or Nintendo DS. If you're into that kind of setup, it's definitely a big plus, because it saves a lot of time. PSP games run without any issues, even with double rendering resolution enabled. This device handles GTA Vice City stories perfectly, no lag, no stutters. In fact, it can practically replace a real PSP and even deliver a better experience thanks to improved graphics and controls. For PlayStation 2 emulation, I had to slightly lower the system settings to get a more stable frame rate. The gameplay becomes more comfortable that way, although the graphics obviously take a hit. Still, with enough tweaking, it's playable. God of War, for example, runs surprisingly well. It doesn't even stutter, which honestly impressed me a lot, considering this is one of the most demanding PS2 games. In fast-paced scenes in Need for Speed, the frame rate feels a bit uneven, and you can definitely tell the system is struggling slightly, but overall it's still a solid result for a mid-range handheld like this. When it comes to GameCube emulation, there are noticeable frame drops as well. In lighter titles, it's not too bad, but in games like Batman, you can see the FPS hovering around 20. That's technically playable, but the controls feel slightly delayed compared to what's happening on screen, so the experience is not very smooth. We also should not forget about Android games. Not every modern title will run smoothly, but you can still enjoy some lighter or older games at full quality. For example, GTA San Andreas or Half-Life 2. In my favorite game, Planet of Lana, I did notice occasional micro stutters, and it's clear that the processor is slightly struggling here. Now let's move on to the most important part of the testing: PlayStation Vita emulation. Unfortunately, most games either crash on launch or freeze immediately. I tested several games from my library, and almost all of them simply wouldn't run on this device. However, I did manage to get two less obvious Vita titles working: LEGO Star Wars and Limbo. I spent quite a lot of time trying different setups, and it's possible that installing a custom firmware like Gamma OS Next context could improve compatibility, but that still needs to be tested. For now, my conclusion is that this handheld is basically not capable of properly emulating PlayStation Vita games, which leads me to the obvious conclusion: the name RG Vita is more of a marketing trick than a real feature. In my opinion, this is clearly misleading for retro gaming enthusiasts. It's not enough to just design a console that looks like a Vita and call it that. It also has to actually run Vita games. That said, if we ignore that disappointed part, overall this is still a good handheld. It offers solid performance, good build quality, and a reasonable price. If you buy it, you probably won't be disappointed. Just don't set your expectations too high and don't fall for the marketing hype from Anbernic. This is not a Vita, but it is a solid replacement for the PlayStation Portable, and honestly, I just don't understand why they did not market it that way instead.